It's like UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Once it's a UNESCO stamp on it, it's been sanitized. So we start to see the star forts with the same thing, that you go there. I went to a fair few around Šibenik, also in Croatia, and they were all rebuilt from the ground up. And there was 3 of them in one. In Šibenik on the hilltops, there's 3 of them. And I thought, oh, right, there's going to be 3. They're all brand new. They're all rebuilt in the last 30, 40 years.
Bosnia, obviously, and that's what they're excavating at the moment, is tunnels under the pyramid. And there's water down there as well. There's water under all pyramids. So I think all these things are, either linked up or they're similar devices from different civilizations. But I think that the answer is more that they've got a lot more to do with power than defense for military operations.
Welcome back to Raised by Giants live discussion. Welcome everyone in the chat. Good to see you guys out there, and any moderators or channel members. We have an amazing, never before done show today, which is always great when you get to see or hear something for the first time. A dynamic duo of David Dubine from Adapt 2030 channel and Cambell from the Autodidactic channel. We're going to be covering a lot of things here today: lost history, star forts, ancient power sources, Nikola Tesla, and I've really been looking forward to it. A warm welcome back to the show, David Dubine. How's it going, my friend?
Great. We're going to have this type of discussion with another who's an expert in the field, because it's all about traveling out to these places and discovering new stone foundations, megaliths that aren't on or haven't been cataloged. And this is why I'm so glad that we're here today to talk about a couple of new things that were found in Istria.
Absolutely. And the last time you were on, we said nothing would happen with the 2024 solar eclipse. And look, nothing happened, David. We're still here. We made it through. And we were probably the only ones in the community that were saying that nothing was going to happen. So how do you feel about that, Dave?
Well, I will say that was just one single event, but the general trend of things, you can see that we're in a reset, and that's what we wanted to talk about today, the historical timeline of these resets. But with a single event along a timeline, that fear that they were trying to push in on a single dot along a general trend is something very different. Now, the general trend, we all really need to get prepared for. This change is real. It's happened before, and we're just at it again. We've already entered the beginning phase of it. We're no longer waiting for it to happen. We are actually in the substantial change period right now. That includes economy, food production, civilization, and that rolls right back into all of our conversations today, Cambell, as well, about what is our ancient past or more recent past that's been reset, that's not allowed for us to know this history. It just keeps coming and going, coming and going. It's a cycle. It's a reset. It restabilizes. It's prosperity again. We hit the peak period and then we decline. And then, it's just over and over and over again, and how much knowledge is hidden during every single one of these resets. But for sure, the trend is clear. We are definitely changing our civilization as we move forward.
Really quickly before I bring Otto on, something did happen recently, and it seems as though you were right that people will start to see strange things in the sky. We had the northern lights in the south, Dave, which is super interesting. And I think that counts as seeing something strange in the sky that people don't normally see so far south, that you've been talking about for many years, that things are going to start happening and people will start to see strange things in the sky. And I don't think that the northern lights were what you were referring to as like plasma lights and other phenomenon, but I just wanted to, let you know that you were technically right.
Gold investors need to buy the dips. Central banks are. Bloomberg and Citigroup are calling for 3,000 by 2025. TD Securities said silver eyes $50 an ounce. And in 2024, gold is up 18% and silver 35%. Call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention the Adapt 2030 channel. You're going to get some great in-class service. Also, Patriot Gold Group has a no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold or silver. No fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Give them a call, 888-546-7020. And now on with the video.
On that, yeah, with the magnetic field shift, you're going to see more of these auroras in further south locations. That's just a given with the magnetic field shift. But the things I was referring to were ground to sky lightning, blue halos, and let's say red sprites that will hold state for a much, much longer period of time where people can actually see them or photograph them with regular cameras versus high-speed film. The size of the hailstones, as we see across the planet, was and is increasing in size. Also, just storms that pop out of nowhere that break our infrastructure. These are the types of things I was referring to. And these comets that we're seeing are sort of meteorites or meteors, just gigantic fireballs. And we're going to witness more and more and more of these, especially as the Earth spins around, comes through that magnetic field coupling of the gas giants, and then swings around in April of next year. And we're the only thing in front of the sun. Every other planetary body is behind us in sort of a spearheaded fashion, where if you just want to work with gravity alone, forget the electromagnetism. If something pulls like a magnet, everything's going to get pulled into the face of our Earth. So this is the beginning of it. We're hitting into a little bit more of that debris trail, and it shall increase as we move forward over these next, 9-10 months. And we're starting to see it. I mean, you can't tell me that all these giant fireballs just in the last week across the world, all green, by the way, simultaneously, and nobody's putting that together. So these are the kind of signs that in the skies and things that you're going to look for.
Now we'll just have to wait and see if you were right about 2030, and only time will tell that one. But also, we have with us today returning guest Cambell from the Autodidactic channel. Cambell, how's it going, my friend? Thanks for being here.
Hello. Good. I'm doing well. Yeah, thanks for having me back.
No problem. Really looking forward to the conversation. And I'm pretty sure you just missed David at the Palmanova Star Fort. You got there a few weeks after David was there.
It was just a few weeks, was it? Yeah, we dropped in there and we survived the apocalypse here as well. So that was good. Well, didn't end for us. Did you hear there was a Simpsons prediction that it was 40 days? There was something from the Simpsons. And so 40 days after the eclipse was the apocalypse, apparently. And we just happened to be standing up on the top of the sun pyramid on that day. So that was nice. But we didn't ascend, unfortunately.
Man, I was looking forward to that fifth dimension. Thought we would get there. What do we know about these star forts? And this is just an open discussion. You guys can ask each other questions. We'll just kind of free form it here. What do we know about these star forts? What were they used for? And well, I guess let's start with what they're officially used for. From my understanding, they were used by the military. Am I correct in saying that? Yes.
Yeah. They're all pretty much all forts today, or star forts, of course, by the name, right? Star Fort. They're all at least built for military, if not still. A lot of them are still military bases. But I don't believe they've got anything at all to do with the military or war or anything like that. I think that they've been reused, reclaimed, discovered.
Cambell, you were in Venice. Did you go to Mestre and check out the star fort that was just over the bridge there?
I didn't get a chance. It's been such a whirlwind trip. But I did have a look on the Google Earth at it and saw, it's a nice big star. That's the thing with stars, they're everywhere. The story is, they call them bastion forts. Basically, it says that a band of merry star fort builders went out in the 1500s and built them for a couple of hundred years. And that's the story. But then we get the same structures pretty much in the Americas. And they're all suddenly built by Americans for the Civil War, but they're clearly the same base idea. They're all different to each other, but they're the same base, sort of idea and structure.
Yeah, I'll say one thing about that. Uniquely, they always have water usually around them. And every one that I've visited has either been stripped or rebuilt. And the portions that are open to the public, if they are, definitely don't have any remnants of ancientness, if that's a term, inside them. All of it's been scoured clean. And I don't know if it's just our modern world that's doing that and the awareness is out there. It's like UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Once it's a UNESCO stamp on it, you know it's been sanitized. So we start to see the star forts with the same thing, that you go there. You know, I went to a fair few around Šibenik, also in Croatia, and they were all rebuilt from the ground up. And there was 3 of them in Šibenik on the hilltops. There's 3 of them. And I thought, oh, right, it's going to be 3. They were all brand new. They're all rebuilt in the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah, that's something that I found as well, traveling around. Even in Dubrovnik, the castle there, like we started calling these places like history theme parks because they've just all been redone. But we went to Belgrade Star Fort, and that was a weird one. It had been, like, you could see remnants in the ground of something much older, but you could see all the walls had been rebuilt, but really badly. It was like stone here and then a few bricks in, and then it was almost like they'd made it to look like, I don't know, like it was built badly. It was the weirdest thing. But and then there'd be like a brand new tower standing on a wall somewhere, and it was just this jumbled up mess. It was crazy. So yeah, I agree that most of these places have basically been rebuilt and turned into tourist attractions by the looks of it.
You know, one thing I could say is, it seems though, just from there's always one little sliver in some corner somewhere where they left the original part of it. So those like you and myself who are seeking this out find like a nugget, a remnant that it seems to be left over. Because when we were in Hungary, we went up to the Slovenian border, and there were 7 star forts in this one town. Again, they were all rebuilt, and there was one little nugget of a wall that you could see might have been, or I thought was the original part, but everything else was scoured. So if your eyes are out there with a microscope, you're going to find maybe one original bit that they left on purpose, but the rest of it, you know, for those of you out there that think I'm going to hit every star fort, I'm going to find the answers. Well, history's already beat you to it. They don't want you to find the answers. At least powers that be.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Unfortunately, with the ones that I've seen recently, it's a shame. But yeah, I mean, like you said, there are remnants. Like in Belgrade, you could see the original old footings and little bits and pieces popping up. Oh gosh, sorry, my phone.
Was that the ice cream truck or your phone?
That was my alarm. But yeah, they've definitely been sanitized. What the question, I guess, is why, right? They don't want us to know what they were. So, I mean, that's a pretty good indication that they're not what they tell us they are, which is, military forts. I mean, an interesting, observation is that a lot of them are called batteries. That's an interesting thing to call a big stone construction, isn't it?
Yeah, when I was in Palmanova, I took a ruler with me, and I was really there going to do research. So I was measuring the bricks and the different types of bricks. There was yellow bricks and red bricks. And the layering of it with the 30-foot tall walls around the 4 miles around it, you would need billions of bricks to do this. And it was a double layer of brick also. So they gave you this history of, in the 1590s, this was a completely flat plain. And then they said, wow, what a great part, and it was supposed to be part of the Venetian army. They set up building a 4-mile perimeter city, 30 feet tall, with substrate on the bottom of it, filled it all in to, be a flat surface up there at 30 feet above the ground, using 1.2 billion bricks, but you can't even find a broken wagon wheel anywhere from that time. And I was asking some questions like, where'd all your bricks come from? I'm like, oh, they came down there, somewhere south coast. They're brought up from near Rome or whatever. I'm like, where are all the broken stuff, or the wagons and everything? And the most interesting thing was, they said that approximately 1620, 1625, it took him 30 years to build this star fort that he and I had gone to, that Cambell and I did. Different times, different journeys. We didn't travel together, but that whole thing, 30 years of construction, and nobody wanted to live there after that. The story goes that they had to pay people in Venice to come up and live in the city. And I'm like, wait a minute. You got 30 years of wholesalers, 30 years of restaurateurs, 30 years of hoteliers, 30 years of laundry, 30 years of XYZ at that time, horses or feedlots or whatever it would be. And suddenly everybody just left, and then they had to pay people to go live there again. It made no sense to me. So just that alone on the Palmanova Star Fort, just the history of it, the amount of bricks, 1.2 billion bricks based on just the rough calculations on a napkin. Where does that leave us? That just makes no sense with that logistics available at that time.
Yeah, I totally agree. All Star Forts, like the one I started with was Jefferson in the coast, in the water off the Florida Keys. And that they say that's the biggest red brick building in the Americas. I even saw one article say the Northern Hemisphere, and that's only they say that's 16 million bricks. But that's just like the Citadel, the inside actual red brick building. And I mean, that's the question. All these bricks. I mean, the thing that gets me about the bricks, apart from the massive number, is they've all been laid in a bed of mortar. Like, how's that even possible? What are your thoughts on that, David? Because I don't even think it could be done by human hands, just for the sheer amount and the timeframes we're given.
Yeah, just the amount of bricks. I mean, let's use an even 500 million, which is less than half of what was used to do the walls at Palma Nova, just on the outer defensive walls. How long would that take to do that? If a human, how many humans would it take? And then you start to get into the math, like how many humans would it take, an average bricklayer, like an average person you would pay at a construction site today, how many bricks could they lay in a single day? And then you're talking about how many thousand cubic yards of mortar would have to be mixed. And then how does that play into everything? Where it was, the bricks were not all uniform. I'll say one thing, is I was into this measuring bricks thing while I was there. So I had my ruler. They probably thought I was a madman. There's guys with the ruler measuring all the bricks all over the place. But none of them were, they were pretty uniform. Now, it could have been because of time and some erosion, but generally they weren't exactly the same. The yellows were variable. The reds were more uniform, but that thickness of the mortar definitely was not uniform in any way, shape, or form. The thickness of it, sometimes it would be, a good inch and a half thick. Other times it was only, quarter inch thick. It was like they tried to stack them to make them in the even line by the variance of the bricks by using more mortar along those faces of whatever the aero defensive positions would have been that are sticking off the city. But I was trying to do the same thing you're getting at, is how long would it take to build? So 30 years, how many people do you need just to put the bricks down? And then we have wet season also. Like, how could those wagon wheels transit through all that mud at the time? I mean, there's a lot of variables here that don't work in the historical fact. And when you ask about it, and then all the tunnels, I don't know if you went to any of the tunnels that were open there. That thing was a honeycomb of tunnels. So not only are we talking about just building straight brick faces, now you're talking about, 50 or 100 miles of tunnels that were built all along inside here, from the inner ring to the outer ring into the third ring out, tunnels connecting, and then tunnels in between that can run around and then how much brick does that take to put a tunnel system in there of hundreds of miles of tunnels? Most of them are blocked off. Obviously, they don't want you to get lost under there, but I'm fascinated by this place now that I've gone. It's really beyond human. It's beyond human engineering at the time that it was done. That's really what I can say definitively.
I mean, and just the logistics of having that many workers, you can only have so many people laying bricks, right? It's not like you can put 20 people in and it goes faster. And the tunnels, there's tunnels under all the star forts as far as I can see. Like, we went through them at Novi Sad,
Oh, yeah,
and that was the same thing. It was just tunnels and tunnels and tunnels, and silly stories about, fighters down there and these holes that they were shooting the enemy through that, you couldn't see a square meter of, out the hole. It was crazy. But I mean, it's interesting because, and the water, right? Because that's also, I'm at Bosnia, obviously, and that's what they're excavating at the moment, is tunnels under the pyramid. And there's water down there as well. There's water under all pyramids. So I think all these things are, either linked up or they're similar devices from different civilizations. But I think that the answer is more that they've got a lot more to do with power than defense for military operations.
Yeah. Did you happen to go to Zagreb and go to Nikola Tesla Laboratory down in downtown Zagreb?
Do you know that I missed it? Again, I've been here. Been here like 5 weeks, and I've been everywhere, but not long enough anyway. So I'll be back to check everything out. But no, I had some friends went, and they said it was amazing. You had a massive, massive coil in there, and
yeah, Working models of magnetic motors, as we understand, using the Earth's magnetic field to power disks that are rotating oppositionally to each other with copper plating in there to generate a charge. Right now, there wasn't just one, there were at least a dozen in there. I'm going to say 16, plus the Faraday cages, plus all the different motors. Some of them were vertical, some of them were horizontal. And that was in work. That was right in everybody's plain sight to see. And even me now, there's a coordinated effort to suppress any of that technology from coming out to working standard that can be then mass manufactured and put out into homes. That's all I can really say about that. But the technology absolutely 1000% exists. Now, couple that with the star forts and these different resonances off coastlines. And then, what if it was one star fort for 100 square mile area of resonance within a field? Then you start to see the dispersion of them and sort of the geometric shapes along coastlines and where they're placed. And who knows, maybe the magnetic field was a little different than on the Earth, where some sort of ley lines were more electrified and it could carry current down that and then take it off into different directions as well. Just conjecturing.
Yeah, I think it's a full system. Michelle Gibson, I was traveling with her for the last couple of weeks, and she talks a lot about the Earth grid, and she includes like train tracks, which I found really interesting, because there's train tracks everywhere that literally connect all of these ancient sites, a lot of star forts included. And when you think about the old types of trains, like a big metal, train on metal tracks, were they carrying some kind of charge? Were they some like artificial ley lines almost, right? Carrying charge back to batteries? I'm not sure, but it looks like everything, the canals, the water's definitely in there. And of course, water, travels by current, just like electricity. And I think there was definitely a worldwide grid and all these things were connected in some way. And that's sort of what the last fall was, I think, is all that free energy and that tech got cut. The grid got cut and now it's not working, and that's why we're paying for our power, right? Interesting word, power.
And I was wondering if the grid was disturbed enough where it didn't work any longer, and instead of repairing it and allowing us to enjoy that same freedom of quality of life, where if you wouldn't have to pay for almost anything, then you could be free to explore what your passions are. Whole different world at that point. But they chose to take it down this path of never-ending global war and destruction to destroy all that, so it's outside of, or if there's a little remnant left, it can be explained away. I think there was definitely a division point where at one point we could have repaired that and gone back to that old way, that old world, but whatever energy, as you talk, power took a hold of our world at that point, or was allowed in at that point. Because you look at Saturn, I'm wondering if some of the same things didn't go on hundreds of years ago, where somehow something was brought here that was power that was allowed to inhabit this area of our of the world, of the solar system here, that was not prior here, that grabbed power and took us down this very destructive road to then destroy all of that infrastructure and technology and bring us back onto a completely metered system for life, including, like you said in the beginning, supermarkets.
Supermarkets, yes. Yeah, I'd agree with that, right? They stole the power and put themselves in power. Right.
Well, Rome basically ruled the world until around the medieval era, or what's known as the Dark Ages, from around 476 AD, which the Middle Ages lasted around 1,000 years and ended around 1450. Right, and that's not that long ago. Okay, if you did the math, what would that be, like 574 years ago? We were in the Dark Ages, what would that be, like 8 people ago? 8 people ago, we were in the Dark Ages, right? Where everyone was running around drunk, raping and pillaging people. They were literally drunk 24/7, ale and wine on deck all the time, 24/7, and I really believe during that period was a lot of knowledge and a lot of understanding, and possibly even technology was lost during that period of 1,000 years, if you are to believe the official account of history. That 1,000 years there is a really crucial and important 1,000 years where things basically just went to shit.
Also, they say.
Mm.
I don't believe the official story of that. I mean, there's a lot of talk about the 1,000 missing years. Have you sort of Anatoly Fomenko's work and looking at the timelines, and we've had all these calendar changes on top of that. I tend to think that's been written in. It's part of their story to send us down in our minds, basically, to tell us we're just these, crazy beasts who get drunk all the time and rape and murder, and so we need all these wars and armies and forts. And I tend to believe that was just either the 1,000 years, the Dark Ages, didn't actually exist, or it was something completely different to what they've told us. So I think that this change, the switch over to the world we've got now, I'm thinking started around mid to late 1700s is when something happened. And so to me, everything before that is really up for grabs. It's like history, right? His story, because we know the winners write the history. So, that's the question, is how much can we believe any of these stories? And that's sort of what I do. We go and look at history, and it all starts falling apart, like pretty quickly too.
Well, when you look at like the powerful families of, back in the day, I mean, how much history wasn't even written down? I mean, the only people that could actually write were some of the royal family people, so what about the common everyday folk? Like, we don't really get anything from their perspective. It's all written from the powerful family perspective. And what were they leaving out? What were they not putting in? What did they not say? What did they not record? Because they basically had the ability to write whatever they wanted to write.
Yeah, for sure. And then you have all the book burnings that went on as well. So they've destroyed a lot of books and knowledge that they don't want us to get our hands on. And then, we can mention the Vatican and what's under there, apparently. What do you think, Dave?
I think just as human ingenuity, that Dark Ages doesn't make sense. So you have 1,000 years of no development anywhere on the whole planet, which goes against completely everything of human nature in itself. Now, you can't tell me with a straight face that people are going to live in squalor, dirt, filth, disease-ridden hellhole for 1,000 years when they could develop their way out of it unanimously across the entire planet. Nothing got developed for all of that time. That is impossible. And compressed air energy technologies, if anybody would like to look this up, were developed during the Roman era. So they understood if you put air and water and you compress the air, that the water, or vice versa, whichever medium you have, would push and spin something. And then suddenly we get compressed air energy technologies, again, appear in about 1750 is really when they pop back out of the woodwork again. So you have that same exact technology during the Roman era, and I'll give it to you and say, bring it up to like 500 AD. Well, they understood, the compression of air with water could power some device, and then suddenly it disappears, and then, 1,500 years later or whatever, it pops back up. Like, what happened during that time? Even just the evolution of compressed air energy technology went back. If they had the original technology, you should, over 1,000 years, at least be able to replicate the same tech. You're using water and air in a crucible or in some sort of vessel or container. How difficult can that be not to be able to replicate that? So in human ingenuity, that just the base state of humanity is to try to get itself a little bit better and a little more comfortable. That's the problem with the world now. It's so comfortable that everybody became so complacent because they don't want to lose the comfort. Because the base is to find that place where there's no animals hunting you. There's no warring tribes that are going to come in and kill you. There's bountiful food. There's clean water. That's the base we all look for, as when we find it, I'm staying here. Comfort's good. We're going to stay alive. But again, the way we have it today, that's gotten too comfortable. So nobody will take action because they don't want to rock the boat and get their comfort taken away. It'll be snatched from them, unruly in the middle of the night one way. But I do want to say one thing about the timeline that you might have for that. That I can attest to this. We were in Verona in Italy, which is west of not only Palmanova, but also Venice. If you go to Verona, Verona. And I started to look at a lot of ancient map sites. Now there's a place called Lago de Garda, which means Lake Garda. And if you look, there was a star fort right at the very south edge of that. And in the 1650s maps, it shows that it's definitely an island within a river. It looks like it's a couple miles off the lake. But then if you look at the 1755 maps, that is in the lake. It's not even, it's a remnant of some sort of foundations that are at the side of the lake. So some transition happened there. So I'm starting to look at a lot of finding single points on the map, like that one is a good start. And just finding as many maps from that same exact area for as many dates as I can and just overlaying them to look at the changes. But that's one of my best examples, that Lago de Garda with that star fort originally in the river center as an island in the river that went around it. That suddenly some earth change happened and that thing is inside. And you know, the old port of Rome as well, the same exact thing happened. That ended up 1.2 miles inland. So what's going on with these events here where suddenly ports are not used any longer and there's massive shifts in geologic feature that rivers run in different directions and then ports are no longer usable. And then they just tell you something simple like, oh, it's silted up. They didn't use it any longer. I kept getting that excuse too. I'd always ask, why didn't they use that port anymore? Oh, well, river changed course. It's silted up. Well, I'm like, dude, how many rivers can change course in a very short period of time where your entire port system is rendered useless? Like what event happened during that very short couple decades, non-functional ports, and then you got to rebuild new ports because everything shifted in its river course.